And while the guns used in most crimes are illegal, they're often stolen from legal gun owners, be they members of the police or security teams or private owners. We've also seen worrying signs that the police's attempt to crack down on illegal gun running is frequently derailed. Top detective Charles Kinnear was gunned down outside his Bishop Lavis home in Cape Town in September 2020. He was supposedly hot on the trail of illicit guns and potential police involvement. So let's take this further now with Adele, Kirsten of Gun Free South Africa. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that this is a campaign that you have been on for so many years, and we hear often that legal gun owners are saying, look, we're not the problem. And to an extent that's true, but it seems that all too often legally owned weapons fall into the hands of criminals. If we look at the gun that killed Senzo Mayiwa, that was a gun stolen from a security officer during a robbery. Then it goes into the illicit flow of guns. What's going wrong with our guns?
Good evening, Sally. I think that story illustrates exactly what's happening. We have 31 people shot and killed every single day in this country. And the three main ways in which guns move from the legal market into the illicit market is fraud and corruption in the whole firearms control management chain. So that means, issuing of fraudulent licenses, buying, giving people fake certification, training certificates, etc. And then loss and theft is one of the big ones. At least 24 guns on average are lost and stolen every single day. And the main source is civilian guns, and that includes your private security industry. So, and then the third is the cross-border trade. So one has to look at them, and those guns, by their very nature, then move into the illicit market. They are hard to trace. It's hard to measure, in some ways, the extent to which the numbers of illicit weapons are circulating in the country. And that's why recovering these weapons, taking them out of circulation, has to be a priority of the SAPS.
But how do we do that? In that previous item, we heard Yusuf Abramji saying that crime intelligence, and we know they're making efforts, but police crime intelligence has been hollowed out for many years. The assassination of Charles Kinnear, while he was investigating this very issue, suggests that there are people who will do whatever is needed to be done to stop getting to the heart of the guns that are circulating quite brazenly, it seems, in South Africa.
I think that, the Charles Kinnear incident is definitely, I think, one of the clearest signs of corruption within the policing environment. And of course, we know the case of the ex-Colonel Princely, who stole over 2,000 guns and through altering them and then pushing them into the Western Cape onto the Cape Flats, which resulted in hundreds of children and young people being killed and injured. So I think it's a key feature that needs to be addressed. But one of the things that Gun Free South Africa has been calling for, including the trade unions, is to establish their specialist firearms unit. And their priority would be to go after the guns, to recover them, to destroy them. You have to deal with the existing pool of illegal weapons if you're going to address the issue of crime in South Africa. And then you have to, if you're looking at where the source is, if one of the main sources of illegal guns is the legal market, you then have to reduce access and turn off the tap. And that essentially means strengthening our Firearms Control Act. So you have to focus on the weapon. Removing the weapon is absolutely critical. There are other longer-term inventions and interventions, things like shifting attitudes around, people having this myth that guns are effective for self-defense when there's no evidence to show that, and listening to the mother who's lost her daughter, the issue of just better policing, that the police have to be the agency that provide safety in communities.
You mentioned that the call for a specialised firearms unit. I've heard that call. Are you in a position to update us on whether it's actually going to go ahead? Is it going to actually be established? Because we have seen the police in recent months saying that they do believe these specialised units of various forms need to be re-established.
I think there's broad support for it. We know that a couple of months ago, the cabinet actually made a decision and communicated that they supported the idea of re-establishing these units. The Minister of Police himself has made comments on it. To date, we don't have any update and have any evidence that they have been established. Obviously, there are issues of selection and given the levels of corruption in the firearms environment, you know, who you put into that unit is absolutely critical. It goes without saying that they have to be above reproach, but they also need intelligence gathering expertise and crime intelligence expertise.
Yeah.
So, you know, perhaps there's, but it's an urgency. We've had them before. They were very effective in the past. And, you know, it makes no sense to not try and fast track this as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I mean, the rate of crime that we're seeing, and as Pule mentioned, the brazen attacks, it's just astonishing. You know, a legal gun owner might argue that they need to protect themselves because of all this rampant crime, and it's a reasonable point to make. Would you urge them to reconsider actually owning a gun?
Sally, we would ask them to really look at the evidence. So this is a typical response, not just in this country, but elsewhere. And there are many factors which drive civilian gun ownership. And one of the big factors is fear. We see that in many countries. So, for example, in the US, there was this massive increase in firearm purchase during COVID. In South Africa, gun dealers reported an increase in gun purchases and ammunition just after the July 2021 unrest. So fear is a key factor. But what people need to look at is the evidence. And a gun puts you at risk. There's a very comprehensive robbery study done by Wits University and the Medical Research Council, which looked at, over 1 million case dockets, but of which almost 70,000 were robbery in which force was used. And one of the biggest risk factors was victims who were armed and who resisted. So guns put you at risk when you're under attack, because robbers always have the element of surprise on. But they also bring a risk into the home. So we know that guns are the weapon most often used in intimate partner violence and in femicide. And you also then get your femicide-suicide phenomenon. Suicide is a big risk for men in particular over the age of 50. We're talking about young children getting access to a gun accidentally. I mean, these are the risks of this is what you have to consider when you bring a gun into the home. And then the two other things we need to think of is there's no evidence to suggest that guns are effective for self-defense. And as this robbery homicide study shows, is that, in fact, your gun is then stolen off you. And so all you're doing is contributing to the illicit pool of weapons and essentially arming criminals. So the evidence is clear. Guns are not the solution.
Adele, Kirsten of Gun Free South Africa, lots of food for thought there. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.